My name is Karen Beck, and today I'm going to be talking about synthetic inertial control methods for wind turbines. So as we continue to move into a more environmentally conscious age, renewable energy sources, with wind energy in particular, become more and more widespread. And as we continue to use wind turbine and wind farm energy, the technology for the turbines itself continues to advance as well, which brings along a new set of problems to tackle. So traditionally, wind turbines were fixed-speed wind turbines, meaning that they only operated at a fixed speed. Now, as technology advances, more and more farms are choosing to use variable speed wind turbines because as they allow the turbines to match the speed of the wind, they're going to be more efficient. So here we have a sample model of a DFIG, which is going to be the most common form of variable speed wind turbine. And the problem with DFIGs, when they're compared to fixed speed wind turbines, is that in a frequency event or a frequency rise or fall in the system, fixed speed wind turbines automatically release all the kinetic energy that's going to be stored in their rotor in order to counter this frequency change. However, DFIGs don't have that ability, and if a frequency event is left unresponded to, this is going to result in energy loss for the system, which is ultimately a loss in profits for the wind farm. So most farms that are implementing DFIGs are going to have to implement a second control system called an inertial control system in order to help maintain the stability of the system. So there are a few methods out for inertial control right now. We are going to be considering the three main methods, which are going to be inertial response, droop control, and the deloading technique. Now, inertial response is the most popular method because it most directly emulates what fixed speed wind turbines do automatically. So with inertial response, also known as virtual inertial control, the turbines are going to release any stored kinetic energy in their rotors to counter a frequency change. And droop control has to do with the active power or the power that is consumed by the system. So with droop control, if frequency rises, the active power is going to be lessened and vice versa. And as you can see in the graph right here, droop control also helps to limit the recovery time that it takes for wind turbines to return to normal operation after a frequency event, making the turbines more efficient. Deloading control has to do with the curve that the wind turbines operate at. So normally the turbines are going to operate along the MPPT, or maximum power point tracking curve, and this maximizes their power output. However, it's really hard for turbines that are operating along the MPPT to contribute any kinetic energy to inertial control. So what deloading control does is that it has the turbines operate at a lesser deloaded curve just to ensure that there is a power reserve in case of a frequency event. The most important thing to consider when analyzing these different methods is how well they establish inertial control, how well they ensure frequency stability, and minimize energy loss. Now, the chart in the figure compares the energy lost for the proposed solution, which is going to be a hierarchical, meaning it splits the system into sub-problems, solution based off of inertial control, in response to just a typical inertial control method. And as you can see, the green is going to be the typical, the blue and green are the proposed solutions. This hierarchical response method was a lot more effective in minimizing any energy loss. Now, this chart comes from a control method which didn't just use one method, but used deloading, inertial response, and droop control. And as you can tell from the chart, the frequency variation for the controlled or the proposed solution was a lot less than it was for just the regular inertial control method, meaning that it was really effective in maintaining system stability. Now, this method is also a hierarchical method, but it doesn't use one technique, it uses two techniques. So the T controller implements virtual inertial response, while the B controller implements deloading control. And this allows the T controller to respond quickly, while the B controller achieve system stability, which was really effective in minimizing energy loss and in ensuring frequency stability for the system. So from all these effective methods, we notice that they all involve inertial control, and that's our inertial response because that is kind of the base for inertial control. And we find that these methods are effective because they were either hierarchical in nature or because they involved multiple techniques. The next thing we have to consider is reliability because wind itself does vary in nature. So in the first figure, we see that at these varying wind speeds, after a frequency event at 20 seconds, the rotor speeds are still varying depending on the wind speed. However, if we look at the proposed solution, which is going to be a hierarchical model for inertial control, we see that even at these varying wind speeds, after the frequency event, the rotor speeds remain stable. So this shows that the hierarchical method is more reliable even at these varying wind speeds. It's also important to consider that inertial response on its own is very unreliable because it's hard to tell if a wind turbine will be able to contribute to the inertial response or not. For example, wind turbines that operate at their minimum rotor speeds or are operating along MPPT can't contribute to inertial response. So this leads to some error in calculating how many wind turbines are going to be operating in the system, which leads to error in calculating system stability. It's also important to consider the cyber uncertainty of the system. So this is a sample communication network for a wind farm. As you can tell, it is very complex. So this can lead to things like networks delays, which in turn lead to energy loss for the system. And the most effective method to countering cyber uncertainty is going to be a hierarchical solution. And this is because when you split the problem into different subproblems, there's less communication demand on the main controller of the network. So all the subproblems are doing their necessary communication, and they only are communicating what's absolutely necessary back to the main controller, which lessens the computation burden, which in turn lessens the tendency for network delays and also helps to ensure the information privacy of the system, as less information is just being freely communicated. So when we're considering all of these options, we found that a hierarchical control method with multiple techniques would be the most effective. Now earlier we found that techniques that used multiple methods or a hierarchical method with just one technique were also effective. However, when ensuring reliability, the effectiveness of their inertial control, and cyber uncertainty, it was clear that a hierarchical control method with multiple techniques implemented would be the most effective in establishing inertial control for wind turbines. Here are my references. Thank you.